I've sold over 10,000 cutting boards, and in today's video, I'll be giving you my 5 biggest tips to help you stand out instantly. And every single one of these tips works no matter where you sell. Let's get right into it. So let's jump into the biggest tip, literally. Bigger is better. So let me explain how I learned this and why this is important. So when I first started selling cutting boards, I was making average size kitchen boards like this, making the brick pattern, making the chaotic, making the cool patterns, making regular long grain cutting boards, all of the above, right? And I would go to market days, I would try to sell them online, and they wouldn't really move that fast. And what I quickly realized is that when people are buying cutting boards, 90% of them are not buying it for themselves. They're buying it for other people. And so you have to market them as gifts, right? And so whenever somebody's buying a gift for somebody, they want to de-risk themselves that they're a bad gift giver. There's a high likelihood that a person already has a cutting board. And so when that gift giver is shopping, whether it's online or at the craft show, they're looking and going, you know what, I bet you Susan and Jeff probably already have a cutting board, right? We don't need it, and they keep walking by. But whenever they walk by and they see something bigger, right? Something bigger like this, and she goes, you know what? Jeff barbecues. Jeff and Susan love backyard barbecues. I bet you that rack of ribs will fit on that. Or they have bigger boards like this, and this was an order. I sold about 100 of these right here. They're like, wow, that's a nice brisket board, right? Not an average cutting board. And so that is a lot easier to sell. Or even to really hone it in, this is a plastic cutting board I made out of color core. And the reason this is so important is because I hear so many times from people selling cutting boards that the market is saturated and they have all these cheap ones in the way, right? Like, I can't believe it. I went to Home Goods and they had cutting boards for $20. How can I compete with that? This is a plastic cutting board. They have these for pennies on the dollar, yet I was selling these for $100 a piece. Not because it's plastic, but because it's big, right? And they want to carry these, they want to put these on their tailgates, they want to carry these around. So not because it's plastic, but because of the size. Now that's not the only thing that sells, but that is a good first step, because the only difference between this board and this board is about $20 in walnut, yet I can charge twice, if not 3 times as much for a board this size as opposed to something like this. Right? Because not everybody has a giant cutting board, but everybody thinks everybody has a simple kitchen cutting board like this. Let's go on to the next tip. Tip number 2, engineering enhancements, or just simply bedazzle it. Now, what I mean by bedazzling is even as something as simple as handles are going to enhance the cutting board, right? And so this cutting board alone, I tried to sell and it didn't work very well because it was just a long, big cutting board. But as soon as you put handles on it, now it's a barbecue board, right? It's a serving tray that you can walk around at the backyard parties in. These handles cost like $3 or $4, but added $30, $40, $50 in value. You're not always going to make the price of the cutting board go up when you bedazzle something, but you're going to make the likelihood of them buying it increase, right? On this board, these handles on the back side did really boost it up, but this was a direct sale. And so if you're selling online, it's really hard to see this in a photo, right? And so these handles like this work good for in person, but not as good as online stuff does. Now, another way to bedazzle it is going to be metal cutting board feet. Now, I know a lot of people put rubber cutting board feet and those work really well, but if you're doing higher end cutting boards, right, you're selling $200 plus for your cutting boards, you make a really nice, chaotic one or something. Metal feet work really, really well. Now we have these at CIC Workshop and we have brass and stainless steel, and these do give it a nicer look, a really high-end look. Now they're not cheap and you can probably find them elsewhere, but we will most likely have the best prices on these on CIC Workshop because I'm not trying to make a killing on these. I'm just trying to get you guys to make more products with your CNC or just out of wood in general. But they are really nice and they do give a really, really cool look. So if you're looking to give that extra little push to a really nice high-end cutting board, metal feet, rubber feet, nice handles like that, all of those different bedazzles really do push it over the edge. Now, on to tip number 3. Tip number 3, make them have a unique purpose or shape. And so like I said earlier, everybody sells a square cutting board. And when Susan and Jeff are walking by at the market days, they're looking for something to give to somebody that they know they do not have. And so that's why those cheese boards that y'all guys are making with the little knife on it, the bread boards, or some stuff that I've sold in the past, I've taken cutting boards like this, and if you have the ability to, put a giant bowl right here, right? Like a bowl inside of it, and you call it like a steak board, right? And all the juices drip to the bowl. Anything like that is going to sell. Another one that I've seen work really well is the corner cutting boards for the countertops. And so maybe Susan and Jeff know somebody that just bought a new house, right? And they know that they're not gonna have this corner cutting board, and it's gonna work great because they're bragging on their marble countertop. And so Susan and Jeff are more likely to buy it. So just don't make a square cutting board that's multicolored and ingrained and think that's going to be the reason somebody buys it. That may be the reason a woodworker that can no longer woodwork really appreciates your woodwork, right? But that's not a reason for somebody to go, oh my gosh, Jeff loves chaos. He's going to just absolutely love this chaotic cutting board. He cooks a lot and has a kitchen. You know, it's not a good reason. So make them a unique shape, make them a unique use case, like this one, once again, for a barbecue, and you're more likely to sell it. Now, I hope that makes sense. Let's go on to tip number 4. Tip number 4 is add-ons. Now, what I mean by add-ons is something that is not necessarily the cutting board itself, but enhancements to the customer, right? Something that is going to entice the customer to want to buy more, or after they buy, increase your profits, right? And I've seen this work both ways. And so a simple one is a cutting board stand. Now, this is a very simple one that we laser cut out, but obviously you can make a ton of different stands. And so a stand works well after the fact or when packaged well as a kit. I'll talk about that in a sec. Another one is just mineral oil or that cutting board conditioner. And fun fact, if you want to make cutting board conditioner, the recipe is right there. And all you have to do is melt that in a pot and you have cutting board conditioner. If not, get you some mineral oil. I literally buy it by the gallon off of Amazon, put it into a bottle. It cost me about $3 to make this, and I sell it for $10. So an extra $7 right there. Sometimes Susan is looking for a gift, right? And they want a complete gift because they have a wedding next Saturday. And so now they get your cutting board and they're like, okay, well, they need a stand because it's so beautiful, right? And so then they get the stand and they're like, okay, well, now I need the care and use, right? And then you put nice little crinkle paper around it. You put some cutting board conditioner, right? And Susan now has a complete gift to give to Larry and Penelope that's getting married, right? Good Lord, I hope I don't ever have to think of names on the spot. But then they do, right? And so we sell a ton of stuff like this to real estate agents. So this year we'll do about $250,000 in sales to just real estate agents with these gifting type bundles right here. And so they work really good for somebody looking for a complete gift. Once again, does it enhance the value of your cutting board? Not necessarily, but does it increase the likelihood of them buying your cutting board? Yes. And that's a really, really important difference that you need to take in. Now, let's move on to tip number 5. And the last tip is going to be to personalize it. Now, you've probably heard that before, but this is a prime example of what to do and what not to do on a personalized board. So hear me out. So this is a really cool inlay board I've done on a previous video, and it looks great, right? This cutting board right here and this cutting board right here, this one is worth a lot more than that one because that one I have to find the right buyer. This one, I make it for the right buyer, right? And remember what you're doing to a customer. You are decreasing the likelihood that they are a bad gift giver. This one has more risk than this one, right? This one, the Williams better like it. It has their name on it, right? And the name is the most important thing to anybody. There is a higher likelihood that somebody is not going to like this, right? Even if they're like, oh my gosh, they love barbecuing. Well, he hates skulls, right? He hates skeletons. And so even though this one took longer, looks nicer to you, has a ton more skill involved, this one is probably going to sell time and time again. Another example is The old square maple small cutting board. Literally everything I said not to do, right? But the way and the reason this one sold is because a simple personalization. Remember, personalization is just decreasing the likelihood that they suck at giving a gift. And it's really hard to return a gift back to the gift giver if it has their name on it. This American flag cutting board fits Bob because Bob is an ex-military guy. He may want his military logo right there because Bob loves the Marines. This one doesn't have a name on it. But you know what? A customer walks by and they're like, oh my gosh, my dad will not stop watching True Grit.
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
He watches it every day. He's gonna absolutely love that. Does it have his name on it? No, but this speaks to him, right? That's what personalization means to me. It's not just a name, it's trying to fit that person. And each one of these tips I gave you today should help you tailor and personalize your cutting boards to whatever audience you're targeting. Just don't try to target somebody that's looking for a square cutting board with a couple stripes on it or a square cutting board with some random pieces of wood. Always understand people are giving it as a gift. So I hope you left this video with more knowledge than when you started. And as always, guys, remember, if you ain't cutting it close, you ain't cutting it right.